What is going on? Hopefully, you are having a good day, whoever might be watching this. It is a pretty pleasant day in Chicago here. It is pretty cold for mid May, but that's the thing. With the Midwest spring, you really don't know what you're going to get. It's so fickle and inconsistent over here. And you would imagine that it wouldn't be a shock anymore just because this happens every year. But somehow we hold out hope that it'll actually be nice for once. But, anyways, I wanted to just quickly look at the Bears' upcoming schedule for 2025. It is no secret that I am a Bears fan, and this is going to be an interesting schedule. But before I get into that, I did I did come across something that just it made me laugh. And I get it that it's May, it's the off season, and content outlets are looking for something. It's hard to come up with NFL content all throughout the off season. The draft is done. We don't have training camp yet. No preseason. They're struggling for something. I get it. But on Facebook, I think it's the NFL on Fox. There was a graphic that came out a couple days ago, and the link in the description doesn't work anymore, which kind of tells me that they removed it because it was so bad. But it's a way too early playoff bracket prediction. And guys, what are we doing, Fox at NFL? I know you need content, but making horrible bracket predictions is not really the best way. And I'll explain it this way. So, in the AFC, they have predicted Baltimore number 1, which is fair, it's understandable. Buffalo 2. Okay, that could happen. Denver Broncos number 3, as in the Broncos winning the division over the Chiefs. Okay, I think we're pushing it a little bit, but maybe you're high on the Broncos, sure. And then the Indianapolis Colts at number 4. What are we doing? What are we doing, guys? The Colts are kind of a mess, and right now it doesn't even seem like the Colts have a viable quarterback option. It's between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, who, yes, he was a number 4 pick. Daniel Jones was a number 6 overall pick. But I don't see any indication that Anthony Richardson is the guy. It really feels like that situation could crumble fast. And to suggest that the Colts are going to win the division over the Texans or even the Jags, come on. Again, I know we're looking for content in the offseason, but that's just not it. But then, the AFC 5 seed, the Chargers. I get it. Okay. Kansas City, the 6 seed in their prediction. That's just egregious at this point. And love it or hate it, because I certainly lean closer to hate than to love, but the Chiefs run that division until proven otherwise. There's just no questions about that. So to suggest that the Chiefs would come 3rd in their own division is pretty wild. Bengals at 7 in their prediction. Fair enough. Cool. But then the NFC. And they predict Washington number 1 seed. I'm sorry. Washington had a great under the radar season last year. They turned everyone's heads. But to suggest that they're going to not just win their division over the Eagles, but be the number 1 seed, I just don't buy it. I liked what Washington did. I like the coaching staff they have. I like the core they're starting to build. But let's see it actually happen before we put them at number 1. The number 2 seed, the Rams. Sure, I could see that. I just don't know if I see the Rams surpassing the likes of Detroit, in all honesty. Best in the West, I think that's fair. Niners got a lot of new players in the building. Seattle, new quarterback, how's that going to look? Arizona can be hot and cold, so I get that. But at number 2, it might be a bit rich. The Lions at the 3 seed. Again, I still like the Lions ahead of the Rams or the Commanders. And I know the Commanders beat Detroit at home. But I think Detroit's injuries last year played a massive toll. There's only so much you could really do when you put, dudes from Wendy's working in the back on your starting defense. There's only so much you could really do, and Washington exploited that. But a fully healthy Lions defense, 3 might be the floor for the 3 seed. And then to say that in their prediction, Carolina at the 4 seed to win the NFC South, I get it. Bryce Young looked better early on. Or I'm sorry, Bryce Young looked better late in the season. They were competitive. But as far as I'm concerned, Tampa runs that division until proven otherwise. If I'm not mistaken, Tampa's won the division for the last 4, maybe 5 years. And yes, you can like what Carolina has done, 100%. But we still need to see if Bryce Young can put it together for a full 16 games. We need to see how that offensive line can actually hold up. Is the defense vastly improved? We have a lot to find out. There's a lot of question marks about Carolina. So to say that they're going to win the division over a pretty established power like Tampa, I think that's why this prediction got removed from Fox Sports' website, just because there's some very egregious leaps, and I just don't buy it. Not 1 second. So just to finish out their prediction, though, they had Eagles at the 5 seed, Vikings at the 6 seed, which, okay, maybe, and then Dallas at 7. Again, I don't know. It feels like they're just trying to force certain teams too high and force certain teams in the playoffs. Minnesota is a great roster, don't get me wrong, and we'll touch upon them more later, but there's a big question mark with quarterback, and how is JJ McCarthy actually going to perform? We really don't know. And it kills me as a Bears fan to say, but the Packers are actually pretty good. I hate saying that. I really hate saying that. But it's hard to see the Packers not really making a push for the playoffs as they have over recent years. Dallas, they have a shot. Fully healthy, it's possible. But first-year head coach, who knows how that's going to look. So that was entertaining to read. That gave me a good laugh for a while. And it highlights a point that in the offseason, we're looking for content for the NFL. We're looking for something. We really want to scratch the itch just because baseball, basketball playoffs, hockey playoffs, it's just not the same. So for the Bears schedule, I don't want to do a projected win-loss record because there are so many unknowns that it's almost a moot point. We really don't have the information to accurately predict how each team will look. But there are a lot of observations to be made. So here's the schedule. And right off the bat, you could tell that this schedule is daunting. And I saw that the schedule is tied for the second most difficult schedule. It's tied with Detroit, and the win-loss record from last year of opponents is 57%, or it's a 5-7-1. And that is only behind maybe one of the most unlucky franchises of the New York Giants, coming in at the most difficult schedule at 5-7-4. And you got to feel for the Giants, man. It's been tough sledding. And to get shafted with a schedule of this difficult, you can't help but feel bad for the Giants. They shipped Daniel Jones away. They still have Daboll and Joe Shane. Their quarterback room is Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and rookie Jackson Dart, and Tommy DeVito, because, Italian kid. The New York media liked him for a couple weeks. I feel for the Giants, man. That schedule combined with the roster, the unknowns, is it too early to say top 10 pick for the Giants again? I just don't know. We'll see how the quarterbacks shape up, but that is an uphill battle. But for the Bears, we're not too far behind, unfortunately. We have a very tough schedule, and it gives me some hesitations about expectations for this team. So just taking a quick look at it right away. We start with 2 divisional games. Not just divisional games, but Monday Night Football at home against Minnesota, who just won 14 games last year. Different quarterback, but a lot of core pieces are still there from last year's 14-win team. I think I don't want to get too much into projected wins-losses, but as JJ McCarthy's very first game, those lights are going to be very bright. The crowd is probably going to be rabid. Monday night home opener against a divisional opponent, rookie quarterback. Caleb Williams has his question mark, sure, but at least he has a full season under his belt. So he's a little bit more battle tested as of right now. Now, brand new head coach, new offensive system, new O-line. Well, the interior at least, thank goodness. But how is it all going to gel? That's a big test right away. And then number 2, second week, going to Detroit. And it's like, geez, that is just again, 2 really tough weeks to start the season. And optimistically, they're probably going to be closer to 1-1 if they could get the better of Minnesota. But what if we start 0-2 to start the year and 0-2 in the division to start the year too? It's not ideal. Not by any stretch. So it only goes to show that we have a tough road. The first 2 teams we face combined for 29 wins in the regular season. That's not going to be easy. But we also kind of suffer from an early bye. We have our bye week in week 5. And that's not ideal for a younger head coach, I would say. It might be nice just to be able to get the guys off a little bit early, but to go week 6 through 18 with no bye week, that is tough. And hopefully during the bye week, that's a good time for the coaching staff to really evaluate the first 4 weeks, see how things went, and make quicker changes. But it would be so much better if that were a week 9, week 10 bye, and that has a chance to be a slog. And in particular, starting at week 8, it is going to get rough. There's a bit of a gauntlet coming up in week 8. I would say that week 8 going to Baltimore, that is going to be a very good litmus test for the Bears. And especially to see how the offense gets absorbed by the team, how the defense gels with Dennis Allen coaching it, going on the road against an AFC juggernaut that you're not too familiar with, that is a very stiff test. I don't expect a win there, but at the very least, how is it going to look? Because the Bears have had a lot of games, in particular last year with Caleb, where they just don't show up. Where it's hard to talk about, but where we get shut out in the first half, we get maybe 50 yards of offense, or for sure less than 100 yards of offense. And then you have to play the rest of the game in comeback mode. And that leaves Caleb a lot more vulnerable to taking sacks, big hits, known passing situations where they could just rush you endlessly. So it'll be a good test just to see how the full team shows up for a very tough road test. But following that, on the road to Cincinnati, that's going to be another tough one where it truly could go either way. That one, I honestly feel like that is going to be more of a shootout with that high-powered Bengals offense, the weaker Bengals defense, going up against what I would say the Bears have a pretty good secondary at least, but they can be vulnerable on the D-line and at the linebacking core. So ignore the sirens. That's just living in Chicago for you. But yes, so after the Ravens, after the Bengals, we got the Giants at home, probably an easy W. But then to Minnesota, hosting Pittsburgh, at Philadelphia on Black Friday, and then at Green Bay week 14. That stretch there will be very tough. That is 7 teams, 5 of them on the road, and 5 of them playoff teams. And Cincinnati, who didn't make it last year, but they were right on the cusp. And a few years ago, they were in the playoffs, in the AFC Championship game, in the Super Bowl. So I would consider Cincinnati a playoff team, truly. That is going to show us a lot about this Bears team. Especially with back-to-back road trips. You're going to Baltimore, and then right around to Cincinnati, then to Philly, and then to Green Bay. That is going to be huge. And it's going to be hard to say. We have to see how it all comes together in training camp, preseason, and in particular in the first half of that season. If they can make good changes during that week 5 bye, try to maximize that particular break as best as you can, we'll see how they all put it together. There are still a lot of unknowns with this Bears team. And I'm optimistic, but truth be told, I've been optimistic for a number of years, and Bears fans can relate. It's been a very disappointing stretch. We were hyped with Mitch Trubisky. We were hyped with Justin Fields. We're hyped with Caleb now. At the very least, we have what looks like a pretty strong offensive play caller. We have a defensive coordinator who has had head coaching experience and has been proven to be a good defensive coordinator. Revamping the interior O-line, really fixing that weakness, continuing to build offensive weapons. I still would have liked them to have drafted O-line to get younger guys in the building and draft D-line. Because outside of Montez Sweat, the pass rush is not particularly great. They've been vulnerable in the run game as well, which I don't know exactly how they're going to address that. But I'm optimistic cautiously. I think cautious optimism is kind of the approach to have. And in a lot of the projected records, I've seen 9-8, 8-9, pretty routinely actually, which, considering this is a pretty difficult schedule, seems fairly plausible. It would be better than winning 5 games. No doubt about that. Is it playoffs? It's hard to say. Again, there's only so much speculation we can really do in May that will actually end up being true once the season begins, or once we hit November. But that's just a quick look at the Bears' schedule. We do have a pretty good amount of primetime games. Again, Monday night, Minnesota, week 1, that's going to be huge. And I feel like the schedule makers really were just trying to screw with us, in all honesty, to put the Bears at Washington Monday Night Football, just like last year with the Fail Mary sensation that I guarantee on that broadcast, maybe over under 10 mentions of the Fail Mary, because I know it's such an easy talking point. We're never going to hear the end of that. But that's going to be a pretty compelling Monday night game, just because, again, Washington made it to the NFC Championship game. It's another pretty big road test. Last year, we were able to hold Washington to a pretty low score until the Hail Mary. So the Bears could play this team pretty tough. We'll just have to see how it all comes together. Then Eagles Black Friday. I did mention that in my last episode, kind of talking about the primetime games and the holiday games. That will be a huge test. Because, again, that is right in the thick of that gauntlet. Right at the beginning of a back-to-back road trip. And on the road to the defending champs. Right after Thanksgiving. So, I know that the Bears played the Eagles close recently, but again, it's just such a hard thing to predict how they're going to look. My biggest hope is that it's close and competitive. I'm sure Philly will be favored by maybe close to a touchdown, 5 points, give or take. As long as the Bears can keep it somewhat close, that's enough optimism, in all honesty. If we go down 23-0 at halftime, then it's just going to be the same old, same old. But cautiously optimistic, right? We do have another Sunday night game at San Francisco, week 17, which, again, that's going to be another really good road test. Niners have a lot of new faces in the building, a lot of new pieces in there, but that's a tough place to play. And it could very well be possible by week 17, the Niners are fighting for the division with the Rams. So Niners will not give up that easily. And then I think, actually, it might be a TBD, but week 16 hosting the Packers, wouldn't be surprised if that gets flexed to afternoon or Sunday night. Because again, it all just depends on how the two teams' records look. If the Bears and Packers are competing for a playoff spot, that could end up being a Sunday night game. Which, I will say, in the year 2025, the Bears are undefeated by the Packers. So I'm hoping that we can carry that streak on. But time will tell. Week 18 against the Lions, another really tough test to close things out. It's at home, so who knows at that point? Maybe Detroit is resting starters. Division could be locked up. They could be fighting for the number 1 overall seed, or it might be totally secure, and they could just put all the backups in. Again, we could speculate the December slate and their form in December here in May, but that's just a quick look at the schedule and to kind of see where we have some tough games, some possible hiccups, and genuinely that week 8 to 14 stretch will reveal a lot about the team. Now, Could they go above 500 in that 7-game stretch? I really hope so. I really, really, truly hope so. And that could be the difference between actually making the playoffs this year and going home early. But time will tell. And I know I keep on saying this, but just every time we talk about the schedule and the games, it's just so much fun. And I really can't help but get excited for the fall. So hopefully, if there are any Bears fans out there, we can survive the season together and just keep our cautious optimism. Just keep our cautious optimism. Not going to get too overhyped and not going to get too depressed. But we'll see how the games go. So if you made it this far, I really appreciate you listening. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.